All right, so today I'm going to be talking about an add-on that I just found out about, or maybe it was just released yesterday, July 4th, 2024, called DCRealistic. It's made by RK Apps. I'll leave a link in the description below. What it is, a lot of people have been asking. So, good thing, there's a 7-day free trial, $20 to purchase if you'd like. And what it is just a sound effects add-on for DCS World. So it's just sound effects. It's not replacement of sound. It's not going to change the way anything else sounds. It's just going to add sounds. It's also going to add vibrations to the cockpit only. Some people think it's camera shake, might be a little obnoxious, but in VR, I will demonstrate exactly what it does. I find it very helpful, especially for stable hovers. When you're in a stable hover, a lot of the times a stable hover will seem like you're paused, like the game is paused, there's no motion whatsoever. So that really helps out a lot. This is what the program looks like. You download it, you install it, and it automatically populates under the profile for whatever aircraft you're flying. So right now, I didn't start flying yet, but I'm in the OH-58D Delta Kiowa Warrior. When I click fly, it'll automatically figure out what aircraft I'm in, and I already have the effects set up. So real quick, I'm going to demonstrate what the application looks like, what everything means, how to make an adjustment, and figure out what works for you. What works for me is going to be different for you. However, for me, I enjoy a lot of immersion, playing in VR. I have haptics. I have 100 watts of transducers under my rig, shaking my cyclic collective and my seat, as well as a seat pad that vibrates and shakes independently from the transducer. So I have two different types of shaking going on from my seat versus the aircraft. So using a little bit of the aircraft shake to my advantage in these settings really helps out. So what you see here, these are all the effects. Anything with the blue dot next to it is what is going to apply to the current aircraft that you're in. So anything that doesn't have the blue dot next to it, you can manually click into it and then activate it, and then the blue dot appears. And if you turn it off, that blue dot no longer there. Now, while you're in an aircraft, which we'll see in a moment because we're paused, anything that is illuminated white instead of the regular standard blue dot, that means that that is an active sound effect or shaking effect. So for instance, when you click on the actual effect, you have options here. You can click preview, you can turn them off, or you can reset to default. So if you click preview, you'll hear what it does or see what it does, and it'll continue to replicate whatever that effect is until you tell it to stop. So right now we're going to hit preview, and we can hear this would be airframe airflow. So the way you really engage that is if you're descending, you're going pretty quick, and there's just a lot of rushing air around your aircraft. You can adjust which sound it is by drop-down menu or cycling individually, increasing the volume or decreasing the volume. Some of these effects are really good for fixed wings. There's some that, could adapt over to helicopters. I primarily fly helicopters, so this is going to be about helicopters. You'll find what works and what you like, figure it out, and move on. So we're done with this, or you can just click to the next one. So the cockpit ambience. So this here, active cockpit. So when you're flying around, calm cockpit. When you're just sitting around doing nothing, these will have different effects individually. You can turn one off and turn the other on so you can hear it in the background. It's very subtle. Engine vibrations. These are going to shake a lot if you really adjust them. We'll demonstrate that in a little bit. Gear drag. So if you have skids, wheels, whatever it may be, you're going to hear the wind rumbling up against them, and you could adjust the depth of the rumbles. You could add camera shake as well. Ground roll. If you're driving, you could actually feel and hear the ground. Over G is going to shake your camera a little bit, and your pilot will actually conduct the hook maneuver, so you'll hear him trying to not black out. Pilot stress, he'll be heavy breathing, a lot of heart rate. If getting shot at, about to crash. Stall, you could adjust the shaking, the sound, and the intensity of the shaking, as well as same thing for touchdown. You click touchdown, you're going to get your shake to your camera, you're going to get your sound and your volume. And then wind ambience, when you're on the ground, you'll actually hear subtle wind around you. Ground effect, when you're very close to the ground, you'll actually hear the wind in the aircraft as you're entering ground effect, and you could adjust that. A lot of this stuff comes in gradually, meaning if you're entering ground effect slowly, this will slowly increase up to the volume that you allow it. And then as you pass through ground effect, it'll slowly decrease again. Same thing with airframe. Airflow, there's a lot of settings that are just like that. Same thing with over G, pilot stress. So if you're a lot of G's, you could adjust them here. He'll be more aggressive towards the volume, as you can hear. So over here, we're going to see currently the last aircraft that I was in was the Mi-8. And now we're going to enter the Kiowa. Look at that, automatically populated, figured it out. Let's go over to the effects tab. We can already see that there's a couple things activated. Cycle IFF. And what we have here, cockpit ambience is already going. Engine vibrations are already going. So let's check those out. So these 20, 26, 23, 90, I'll play around with them. But you can see I got a little bit of cockpit shake here. If I turn that off, there's really not much as we're looking around. Really not much. So if you're in a stable hover or an auto hover, really going to look like the game is paused. All you're going to have is sound effects. But with this on, it adds that subtle shake. Now that subtle shake is something that I customized. You could really intensify a lot of shaking. And you could have it shake fast, lower the frequency really fast, really tiny shakes. Now, really quickly, to indicate this, you can see it shaking pretty violently. I don't like that, but it's not shaking my camera. It is only shaking my aircraft. So I'm going to look outside the cockpit. Nothing is shaking. However, the aircraft is what is shaking. Feels very realistic to me, as everything that I'm sitting on is shaking. This is too much. I can't read anything. So that's where your adjustments come in. Figure out what you like.
Actually, some of the vibration you're probably going to be able to see is my headset vibrating as I'm sitting on all the haptics.
All right, so here we are in a stabilized hover using AI. There's really not much movement. Almost looks as if the game is paused. That's where this comes in. So I activate it, get a little bit of that rumble, a little bit of that shake. So next up, I'm going to try and induce a little bit of G-force, some airframe airflow, come into a little bit of a hover. Ground effect should kick in. I'm going to touch down. You're going to see a little bit of camera shake. You're going to see the white light blinking. You're going to hear the touchdown, and then wind ambience is going to kick in when I'm on the ground. You're going to hear the wind flowing around us. In that order, that should work. Pilot stress is for when we're getting shot at, freaking out, about to crash. We'll induce some of that later. So let's fly, and we'll try and keep an eye on that. All right, so that worked pretty well. We entered a little bit of the ground effect. We heard it. It sounded a little bit different. Touchdown, wind ambience, and you can hear in the very background. We can preview that so we can hear it cranked. Hear just the subtle in the background at 50% wind speed. If we lower it, we have nothing. So having that on sounds really nice. Just a little bit of wind in the background. Several to choose from. I like the random. So again, you can hear the stall buffet. Let's get a little bit going with airframe into ground effect, touchdown to wind ambience. Over G. Trying to watch the settings here but not crash at the same time. My ground effect was kicking in a little bit, disappeared. You can hear it kicking in right there. Let's go with a skid touchdown. And the subtle wind in the background. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. All right, so we just went from the Kiowa Warrior and we are now sitting in the Blackhawk, which is not a paid module. This is a mod. Let's see if it recognizes it.
This mission starts with your aircraft ready for takeoff. You may fly the planned route or just explore the area. There are no threats.
Look at that. Immediately recognized. We already have some effects going on here. I already customized it to my liking, so we can test out a couple more features here. Now, these planes flying over us, we don't hear anything. The Blackhawk has pretty much like a muted cockpit. You can't really hear anything outside the cockpit. Open the front doors. Now you can hear everything. Close the front doors. We'll fly right past them, right next to them again. You won't even hear them at all. It's just the way that the Blackhawk mod is. So adding a little bit of that airframe airflow, gear drag, stall buffet, all of that adds so much more immersion. Can't hear them at all. Let's get a hard landing in here. Feel the touchdown. Shakes a lot. Adds a lot more to the original sound that just sounds very muffled. Adding those additional sounds really means a lot to this helicopter. Let's see if we can really freak the pilot out. Alright, so let's showcase pilot stress. Let's stress them out a little bit. You're going to hear some breathing, some heart rate. I have it as almost low as it can go. The sound can be overwhelming if you have it very high. But let's just get shot at right through the windshield, come up on these soldiers, and the pilot's going to start freaking out.
So this here is their website. Looks like they have one for Microsoft Flight Simulator, one for X-Plane, and now one for DCS. Try it, a 7-day trial. It's free. To buy it, I believe there it is, it's 20 bucks. And to download it, you download. And it's as simple as running it. It installs. When you open it up, once you start the game and you connect to your aircraft, it's done. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it helps.